At Zuplo, we believe that the better the quality of an OpenAPI document, the better the developer experience is going to be for the consumers of that API, which is why we built RateMyOpenAPI.com. It's a suite of tools designed to help developers improve the quality of their OpenAPI specifications. Each time you submit a specification to Rate My OpenAPI, you'll get a score out of 100, as well as some additional scores in 4 key areas such as documentation, completeness, SDK generation, and security, as well as a list of all the issues that have been found and ways that you can fix them. To use Rate My OpenAPI, you can just head to the website. It's at RateMyOpenAPI.com. You can drag and drop a specification file directly in there, or you can provide a URL if you want. But there's also 3 additional flavors now that I think sit nicely inside of a more traditional developer workflow. You've got the CLI, which is going to allow you to get this check performed directly from the command line, get the responses back. There's also a GitHub action. So when you commit the spec to a repository, you can have this GitHub action run and it will give you the report back directly inside of GitHub. So you can then go and decide to make changes. You can also use this as part of your CI/CD pipeline. So if the specification doesn't actually hit a specific score, then it won't pass and you have to go back and make the changes that it recommends to get that score up so you can actually start to merge it into production. And of course, there's the API. If there's any other way that you would like to integrate this, you absolutely can. All of the endpoints are available and all of the documentation is here to help you do an integration that's going to put Rate My OpenAPI at the heart of your workflow, however it is that you would like to do it. Sound good? I think so. Let's take a look at it. We'll start with the CLI. Here in my editor, I've got an OpenAPI specification for a shopping list API, and I'm going to use the Rate My OpenAPI command line interface to check it and see what kind of a score we get. So how do we do that? Well, if we head to the website, we can see to use the CLI, we can run a command with npx that's going to need a file name, but it's also going to need an API key. So how do we get one of those? Well, we head over to the documentation. That's where you'll find it. Once you jump in there, you'll see in the authentication section, there is the API key that you can use. Now, if you go here and you aren't registered, you're not going to see one. But as soon as you register, you can do it with single sign-on, as well as creating your own account with Zuplo. You'll be able to grab the API key from here and use it both with the GitHub action and also the command line interface. So let's copy it, head back to the editor, and then we will try this out and see what kind of a score we get. So npx rmoa lint file name OpenAPI JSON, and then an API key. Don't worry, I will roll this key after I've recorded this. So let's see, what kind of a score do we get? All right, first off, overall score of 39, not great. The minimum passing score by default is set to 80, which is a pretty good score. Nice coverage across all of the key areas. You can see here we're not doing so well in a couple of the areas, particularly around docs and completeness. We've also got an error in there as well. So let's take a look at the URL that it's given us here for the report, and we'll see what it is that we need to fix. Okay, so big red 39, we have some work to do. You bet we do. All right, let's take a look. Looks like our OpenAPI file is throwing a party with all of these issues. Major VIPs include undefined error responses and missing rate limits. Time to tidy up that guest list. I agree. Okay, let's take a look first and solve some of the more pressing stuff. So we have an error. We want to solve that. If we click here, we can see more detail about the errors and also the warnings as well. So we can find out more specifics about where they are and what some of the problems might be. Also why they're important. Why did this violation appear in the first place? And if a fix isn't immediately apparent, then you can also jump in and get an AI suggestion as to what you should do to rectify the problem. So we can see here, this is a pretty obvious error on line 20. We have a ref that is missing an F and is now erroring because that's incorrect. So we need to go back to our file and make that change. So jump back to the editor. Over here, we can go to line 20 and we can see, yeah, there it is. We are missing our F. Let's put it back in. Save this, and then we'll run it again and see if we get a different score this time. Okay, we've jumped up a few points. We're still in the red with an overall score of 45, but just by making that change, we've jumped up in terms of the score. So let's take a look and see what else it is that we need to be changing to get that score up a little bit higher. Okay, so we're seeing that OpenAPI servers must be present and a non-empty array. Okay, let's find out more about what that means. Okay, so not seeing anything specific in here this time. So let's check out the AI suggestion and see what that says. Okay, so we should have servers present in here. We don't at the moment, so okay, let's add it and we'll see if that changes anything for us. Head back to the editor. Okay, so we need to do servers. Servers exists up here typically, so let's put that in. It needs to be a non-empty array, so we're going to have at least one server with a URL, and this is where our actual base URL is for all of the endpoints that we have here. So it's going to be api.myshoppinglists are amazing.com, and then we'll put a little comma in here. And then we should be good to go. Okay, so we've added servers now. Let's run it once more and see if that changes our score. Okay, it has. We've moved out of the red. We're now into the amber. Our doc score has jumped up and our overall score has jumped up to 50. So you can see just by going through and making these incremental changes and following the advice that Rate My OpenAPI gives you, that you can quite quickly get to a very much more complete specification that's doing more things for you, that's achieving more things for you, that has a higher overall level of quality than it did when you first started. So we're doing well with this. We could keep moving and keep changing things and keep adding things, but I think by now you kind of get the point. So let's check something real quick and run this with a GitHub action and see what we can get when we commit this to source control. To do this, we're going to need to commit the changes that we just made and push them up to GitHub. Now, I've already got a repository set up over there. I've already added the Rate My OpenAPI GitHub action. I've configured the secret key. And if you need to see about how you can do that, then just head to RateMyOpenAPI.com, check out the documentation. It's all there, and all the configuration that you need to get this up and running on your own GitHub account and on your own repositories, you can find there. So let's commit what we've done, and then we'll push it up and see what kind of a score we get. But this time we're going to see the score in GitHub. So we will git add everything, git commit, major changes, and then push this. So I'll show you how this is configured. In here you can see we have the configuration for the action, and it's set to run either on pull requests or also on pushes to the main branch. And when it sees either of those, it's going to run a job called Rate My OpenAPI, which will check out the Rate My OpenAPI action, and it will pass in the file path and also the secret key, and then it runs the link command over that, and the responses are returned as a result inside of the action. Doesn't take long at all to run. In fact, it should have finished now that I've just told you about it. So if we head over to GitHub and see this here, what we will have is some changes that have been made just now to our OpenAPI JSON. Let's head into actions, and here we can see our major changes workflow ran 15 seconds ago. It's got a red X next to it, which means there was some kind of an error. And that error is that it's checking for a score of 80, which is not what we're going to get, because we know that our score, even with the changes that we made, is 50. But you can see inside of the results here that you get the full report as you would see on the website inside of GitHub. So your overall scores and the different breakdowns for docs, completeness, SDK generation, and security are also in here as well. You get a summary of the things that you need to be changing, advice on what it is that you should be doing, and of course a link back to Rate My OpenAPI. So if we click on this, then we'll get that same report over here, so we can go and use this as our reference as well, make some changes, recommit them, and see if we can get that score all the way up to 80, or whatever we've set it to. If we decide that we need it to be lower than that, that's fine as well. So there it is, Rate My OpenAPI from Zuplo, now with additional CLI, GitHub Action and an API to build whatever you want. We hope you enjoy it.